Hi everyone and welcome to the channel. I visited the pleasure beach a few days ago and rode Valhalla for the first time since it reopened after its reimagining, so I wanted to share my thoughts today. I will be mentioning spoilers in this video, so if you want to ride the reimagined Valhalla without spoilers, then this may not be the video for you. Okay, so let's begin with the queue line and the station. Firstly, what a lot of people will probably notice when you compare the new Valhalla to the old is that the new Valhalla has more of an entrance to it. The Pleasure Beach have introduced a new entrance to the ride, which is bigger, it's a little bit more exciting, and it just looks pretty nice in my opinion. You'll see that they've planted some flowers, some trees, they've just given the ride generally a bit more of a grander entrance compared to what it previously had. The station itself has had quite a bit of a change, and all of them are pretty positive for me. First off, the station is now painted black, which just emphasises the dark nature of the ride. The control panel has changed places as well. It's now over to the left-hand side of the station. I'm glad they did this because it just opens up the station quite a bit. They have added some mist effects to the station and the queue line too, along with a massive Valhalla sign, which are good for adding atmosphere. The actual facade of the ride hasn't changed too much. The only change is that the section that was once open, where the boats would turn around to go backwards down the drop, is now completely covered up. The ride is now story-led, with a Viking guiding you on your journey. I absolutely love that they've done this, as it just adds so much to the ride in my opinion. You feel more of a part of the ride and you feel more immersed in the experience. It just adds a lot. The track layout is mostly the same, the only difference being that the turnaround section has now not only been completely covered up, but it has changed. Before, boats would enter the turntable and be turned to the backwards position to go down a small drop. But now what happens is the boats enter the turntable section like they used to, but we now get turned to the left-hand side so that we are still in the forward-facing position, ready to go down the drop. So you basically go down the backwards drop forwards now. Personally, for me, I do miss the backwards drop, as the drop did feel bigger going backwards. However, to make up for it, they have added in some new effects in that area, and it does sort of compensate for the lost backwards drop, I suppose. I do understand why the Pleasure Beach have changed this. It's to try and make the ride more reliable, because I have heard over the years that the turntable was quite temperamental, and to be honest, I don't mind going down the drop forwards because they've added in all of the extra effects. They've also integrated the turnaround section into the story of the ride as well, which is always very nice. I'll try not to spoil the entire ride for people, but I do want to bring up certain effects and rooms. The new Valhalla is overall, in general, just a much darker experience, which reminds me of the early days of the attraction. A lot of the ride takes place in total darkness, which I'm glad they've brought back. The new slogan for Valhalla is Brave the Adventure, whereas it used to be Ride the Adventure. I feel that the new slogan is much better and it does accurately represent the new ride experience. The first lift hill looks 1,000,000 times better than what it used to, and it does a great job of just getting you excited about your journey. After the first lift hill, there's a turn to the right and there is a new scene of lanterns that are just glowing in the dark. I love this scene because it's simple, but it does add a lot to the atmosphere. The old fake fire/steam room now looks darker, and to be honest, it's looking better than ever. After that comes the previously open section and backwards drop. As mentioned, it's now completely enclosed and the drop is forwards. When I saw them covering over the open section before the ride opened, I was a little bit unsure if I liked it, but now that I've actually ridden the ride, it just makes so much more sense to have this section all covered up, and they've added a lot of effects to this little area of the ride. After the ice room, there's a lot of effects and props that are from the old Valhalla. It's good that they've kept some of the old stuff in, because the old effects that are still there now are actually some of the effects that really made Valhalla Valhalla such a great ride to begin with. The ring of fire effect at the bottom of the second drop is still there, however we did not see it active for our ride, which is a little bit disappointing. The fire finale is very much still there, which is great to see, and also the water cannon once boats have exited the ride building is still there too, which is great for one last hurrah before returning to the station. Now, I want to talk about the music now. It was created by The Notable Stranger, and the park have stated that they have over 40 minutes of new music for Valhalla. There's parts of the new soundtrack that I really love, but there's also parts I'm not too sure I'm keen on, to be honest with you guys. The original soundtrack was actually a piece of music from Hot Ice, which is Pleasure Beach's ice skating show, but I personally think that it really captured the adventure of Valhalla. It wasn't really known as the Hot Ice music, it was known as Valhalla's music. And I'm one of those people who went on the reimagined Valhalla and was thinking about the old soundtrack. I'd love for them to somehow incorporate the old soundtrack into the ride again, because I just love the old soundtrack too much and I did miss it. It was always going to be difficult for whoever did the soundtrack to win people over with what they created, just because of how loved the original soundtrack was. So hats off to The Notable Stranger. I think the soundtrack's good, but I think it'll just take me some time maybe to get used to it. I want to briefly talk about the way the Pleasure Beach are currently operating Valhalla, because during both days it wasn't operating the best. At the moment, even though Valhalla is no longer in technical rehearsals, the Pleasure Beach are sort of still operating it as though it is in technical rehearsals. On our first day, Valhalla was scheduled to open at 1 p.m, however it didn't open until 2, and then it was closed by about 3:30. It did not reopen that day. And then for our second day, it was scheduled to open at midday, but it didn't open until about 2:30. I've heard that this seems to be a common thing that the Pleasure Beach are doing with the ride right now, and maybe there's a perfectly good reason why the Pleasure Beach are doing this, but it is a shame and a little disheartening to see a ride that should be open and operating just like any other ride in the park only be open for an hour and a half out of a whole day. I'd love to know the reason why this is happening, especially since the ride was open all day not too long ago for Valhalla's media event. Overall, I think the reimagined Valhalla is fantastic. There's so much that they've done right with this project, and I'm so happy that the Pleasure Beach have chosen to spend the money on the ride and give it the TLC that it needed. It's a great ride with a reputation of being one of the best water rides in the world, and I think that they've just made it even better with this reimagining. It reminds me of how it was back in the earlier years and back when I first rode the ride. So yeah, they've done a brilliant job, and I want to thank the team who've worked so hard on this project, because I know that they had a lot of delays and a lot of issues, but they have done great things for this ride, and I would definitely recommend that you go and ride Valhalla. I would also recommend that if you rode Valhalla during the technical rehearsal phase, go and ride it again now that it's no longer in technical rehearsals. So I think that's all that I had to say. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave it a thumbs up. If you're new here, click on that subscribe button. What do you think of the new reimagined Valhalla? Let me know. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.